Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Professor Ming's Strategic Insights. On June the 21st, the United States dispatched 7 B-2 bombers, escorted by dozens of all types of airplanes, and flying thousands of miles all the way to Iran. The B-2 bombers attacked and bombarded 3 nuclear facilities located respectively in Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. It is reported that all 3 places were devastated. The news was released by President Trump himself. He made it public. And of course, needless to say, the news shocked the entire world. You may wonder how things in Iran would get to this far, get to this point. Well, the thing can be analyzed from various angles, but today I want to focus on one aspect or one angle. As I see it, this is a contest of strategic plans or strategic policies of many countries. Iran, of course, Israel, Russia, Communist China, and of course, the United States. In order to further illustrate my point, I think a quick review of what has happened in recent years, especially in the past 1 or 2 years, is in order. In somewhere between summer and fall of year 2023, there was a news saying that Israel and Saudi Arabia was on the way to normalize their relationship. Namely, they are trying to reach a rapprochement diplomatically and officially between the 2 capitals. And just before that happened, on October the 7th, to be precise, on the 7th, Hamas from Gaza Strip launched an, what should we call it, blitzkrieg against Israel, killing thousands of people and taking more than 100 hostages away from them. And of course, Israel was furious and was ready to fight back. I must remind you, behind Hamas, it was Iran who supported Hamas to do this. The purpose was to stop or to prevent the rapprochement between Israel and Saudi Arabia from coming true, and as we pointed out. As Israel was fighting against Hamas, the Hezbollah from the north, inside Lebanon, attacked Israel from the north. And the Houthi forces attacked Israel from Yemen, from the south. So in fact, Israel was fighting 3 enemies almost simultaneously. And at this point, I must remind you, behind Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthi forces, there was Iran. And behind Iran, there was Communist China. Beijing, yes, you hear me right. It was Beijing who was behind Iran, and Iran was behind all these 3 forces. As a war between Israel and Hamas was going on, I was approached by many people, and they were all wondering about one thing. Will this war between Hamas and Israel become another great war in the Middle East, namely the 6th great war in the Middle East? My prediction was that I cannot rule out the possibility, but the possibility of a great war in the area would be very slim, because I analyzed the situation in the world clockwise around Israel, from north to all the way to the south and to the west. Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. They all have their domestic reasons and their foreign policy considerations not to involve in the war against Israel. There are many reasons, but let me skip that. So anyway, in short, my prediction was there would not be a total war in the area. Then, as everybody knows, that Israel invaded Gaza, and then they defeated Hamas. Hamas was beaten badly. And Israel, in a very genius way, they almost took out the mid to high-ranking leaders, military leaders of Hezbollah by way of exploding their pagers and their intercoms and things like that. So by now, there was only one question remains: how to deal with Iran, who was behind all this. Before getting to this question, let me redirect your attention to one important interlude. the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria. By early December 2024, the Assad regime in Syria collapsed. It was because prior to this, Assad had two strong supporters. One is Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the other one is Russia. As we mentioned, Hezbollah was almost taken out by Israel earlier, and Russia is caught or had been caught in the war against Ukraine, and is fighting a very bitter war there. So they did not have enough strength to support the Assad regime. So that's the main reason why the Assad regime collapsed. Let's go back to Israel and Iran. By the middle of June, actually on June the 15th, Israel launched a full-scale attack against Iran. It nearly wiped out the entire leading echelon of the Iranian army. Then there was one question remained. What about Iran's nuclear capabilities? How could they do about it? Then came the United States bombardment, as we mentioned at the very beginning of this program. So after this brief review of the history of the regional politics, we can now focus on our main theme, the contest of many countries' grand strategy toward the area. Let's talk about Iran first. For Iran, they have short-term goals and mid-term goals and long-term goals. For them, the short-term goal is the annihilation of the country of Israel. Yeah, you heard me right. They wanted to, they said in the past, several years back, they wanted to wipe out the country of Israel from the map of the world. That's their short-term goal. The mid-term goal for them is to outrun or to weaken countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt to a certain point. And for them, the long-term goal is to claim hegemony in the area, in the Middle East region. And in order to achieve these purposes or these goals, they have to rely on two countries, Russia and Communist China. But now it failed. It met with a disastrous failure. So that was Iran. The second country I want to talk about is Israel. For Israel, this is probably the best time in that case, or probably even for millennia. Russia is now caught in a war against Ukraine and could not get out of it. And Communist China is caught in the trade war against the United States and is deeply caught in it. And in the United States, they have President Trump, who's a staunch supporter for Israel and even for decades. For Israel, this is probably the best time to deal with its enemies surrounding him. So for the Israelis, the short-term goal is to bring down Hamas, Hezbollah, and to perhaps take out or to devastate the Houthis in Yemen. That's for short-term goal. And for the mid-term goal, probably to attack Iran and to weaken Iran to a certain point, to devastate its nuclear capability and to weaken its capability to launch ballistic missiles against Israel, and perhaps even to bring down the religious regime in Iran, hopefully. And for the Israelis, the long-term goal would be to live with its Arabic neighbors peacefully, so-called peaceful coexistence. And that's for Israel. So by now, you may wonder, why doesn't Russia come to help Iran when the latter is being attacked by both Israel and the United States? As we mentioned, Russia is now deeply trapped in the war against Ukraine, and it almost exhausted its resources. It was too feeble to support the Assad regime in Syria, and it's almost impossible for him or for them to offer any help to Iran. So we can say that Russia's strategy toward the region meets with a debacle, with a failure. This question for Moscow can also be applied to Beijing. Why doesn't Communist China help Iran at this point? Well, as we mentioned before, actually weeks before, we said that Communist China had a grand strategy, a grand strategy. They were hoping that the war in Ukraine between Russia and Ukraine could become a protracted one, and it lasts as long as possible, so that Russia, the European countries, and even the United States will be exhausted by the war. And then Communist China will become the sole powerful country in the world. That's their fantasy. That's a part of fantasy. The second part of the fantasy was Taiwan would have an election, a presidential election, in late 2024. If a massive chaos erupted in Taiwanese society after the election, then there's a good chance for China, for Beijing. And if the same thing happened in the United States in their 2025 presidential election, and that's really a window of opportunity. And on top of that, should there be a massive war in the Middle East, then that's it. They're gonna take Taiwan by force, and even to the point of bringing down the United States altogether in one shot. And that's their fantasy. Remember, as early as March 2023, when Xi Jinping was visiting Moscow, and he said to Putin, he said, now the world is experiencing a change, a big change, a change of 100 years. Let's promote this together. This is part of the change. Putin simply replied, yes, I agree. Then we saw that Communist China helped out Russia to fight the war and to prolong the war in Ukraine. It supported Iran, it supported Hamas, Hezbollah, and even the Houthis. They're waiting for the eruption of massive riots in Taiwan and also in the United States. And now it seems that their expectation failed. Both Hamas and Hezbollah were taken out. They're on the brink of total collapse, and Iran is seriously weakened. So it seems at this point we can say that Communist China's policy toward the region is now experiencing a setback, a major setback perhaps. And both the United States and Israel is now getting an upper hand, at least for now. So what will they do next? Probably not much. Perhaps they're thinking of creating a chaos, some kind of chaos or some kind of uprising in Taiwanese society, or perhaps in American society. And will there be a great war or a big war in the Middle East? Well, I cannot rule out the possibility all at once, but I will say the chance is rather slim. So before we conclude today's discussion, one question remains. What will happen to Iran? What can they do next? Well, people are talking about, they might launch a series or a very massive counterattack against Israel, or targeting at the American military bases in the region. They could block the Strait of Hormuz, or they could speed up their nuclear capability programs, and so on and so forth. Yes, all these possibilities cannot be ruled out. But I just heard they just announced a ceasefire. So by that, I think my gut feeling tells me they are calling for a negotiation. They want a ceasefire, that's for sure. They want to protect their regime, their political power, and perhaps to a certain point, they want to protect or they want to save part of their nuclear capabilities, of course, for the civilian use one, not for the military purpose, that's for sure. But I'm not sure that can be allowed or that will be permitted by either Israel or by the United States. Well, that remains to be seen. But I must say this. At this point, anything could happen to Iran. A coup d'etat, a revolution, or a change of regime. It's all possible. So let's see what will happen in the next few months, weeks, or even days. And that's all I want to share with you today. I hope you liked today's program. Oh, I almost forget. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't done so, and click the icon bell so that you get a notification once we have a new program on. I'll see you next time.